Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, and as John Campea likes to call me, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. And this is a mailbag for Monday, July 19th? 18th? 2022. Is it 18th or 19th, Ray? It's the 18th, baby. A mailbag for July 18th, 2022. Of course, as you know, every day live on the John Campea Show, we open up Super Chats for a very short period of time because we want to get to those Super Chats live on the show. But other than that, anytime, 7 days a week, day or night, all around the world, you can follow the link right down below, and you can fire in a comment, a question, a review of us, maybe some disparaging remarks, whatever. I'll read them if we deem them appropriate right here on the mailbag, and maybe one day Ray Ora will join me as well. That day may never come, but I'll throw to him occasionally, and you'll probably see his lovely mug on even today's mailbag. Can't promise you, but you might. So we're just going to jump into it and find out what's on all of your minds today. Gunillo? Is it Ganillo or Ganillo? Ganillo RW saw pillow. Maybe I got it right. I hope so. I like that. Greetings, people of this earth. I watched your Miss Marvel spoiler discussion last night and realized I'm far from my home. On my earth, John is always level-headed and Rob fearlessly dives down every rabbit hole. I agree with this earth, John. We witnessed an Avengers Initiative level moment. I just hope when I get back to my earth, the clunky slapstick of the after-credits scene is replaced with something which reminds me less of the Munsters trailer. Well, Granil, let me just tell you, I don't know if you've slammed me or held me up on a pedestal, but either way, I want to thank you for your comments. I mean, does that mean you didn't like Miss Marvel? I'm not, slapstick at the end when she gets pulled through the door. I thought it was kind of an interesting way to go. I mean, I enjoyed it, but not as much as I enjoyed your commentary. You made me laugh. You cracked me up. I want to know, which Marvel Earth do you come from? Clearly not 616. Please, you got to hook me up. Are you from the Noor dimension? I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question. It was more of a statement anyway. I don't want to live my life like I'm in that Munsters trailer, because that would truly be awful. But I want to thank you for writing in and supporting the channel. Anonymous says, "Hi, crew. I was wondering if you all heard about the Vince McMahon investigation and all that's happening. I only ask, seeing that it was supposed to be a biopic of him, but I heard that it was canceled even though it was in post-production. Do you guys know?" I have to tell you, I don't know what's going on with Vince McMahon. I don't know much about the investigation at all. And if they shot a documentary already and they're in the middle of post, that means that a lot of people did a lot of great work already. And I'm always sorry for that if it's not going to see the light of day. But hopefully it'll come out. I mean, I find Vince McMahon to be he might be a polarizing figure, but he's certainly a very interesting one. And I'd love to know more about how his journey brought him to become the impresario of the wrestling world that he is. Of course, people know I had a little dealing with him back 20 years ago, working on the XFL cheerleader commercials. Shameless plug. If you go to my YouTube channel, Post Geek Singularity, look up XFL cheerleader commercials, and you can watch them and hear my little story. But other than that, I don't know what's going on with the investigation, but I'll have to look into that. Thanks a lot for asking. I am, of course, not the guy. Ray, do you know anything about? No, you don't know anything about it, man. Staying out of it. Okay. Kalis Menon says, "Hey, John and Rob, I saw Elvis over the July 4th weekend, and wow, what a movie. The movie was good, but Austin Butler's performance, was great. Definitely Oscar-worthy. I became an Elvis fan after seeing it. Certainly better than Walk the Line." I like Walk the Line. You know what, though? From a cinematic standpoint, Elvis is an incredible piece of work. I mean, I pity the editor, but I understand. I mean, Walk the Line was more of a traditional biopic story, and it certainly it does not bring the cinematic stylings of Baz Luhrmann to the fore. But I think Walk the Line is still a very respectable movie with a great central Joaquin Phoenix performance as Mr. Cash himself. So I really like that movie. But Elvis, that's a cut above. Spud Queen says, "Rob and Ray." It says Robin Way, right? Robin Way. Robin Ray, my partner and I are on season 1, episode 6 of For All Mankind. Since you're up to date, will the tragedy of 9/11 happen in their timeline? Well, even in the third season, they are not up to 9/11. I will say this, season 4 takes place in 2003. So I don't know if we're going to see 9/11 happen. Well, there's more to their question I haven't got to yet. If it's too spoilery to answer, feel free to plead the fifth. Love the show and listen every day at work. Thanks to Bring on the Filthy. No, it's not. I mean, I honestly don't know what's going to happen in season 4. I've only heard, like, we've seen through episode 6 in season 3. My friend Bill Hunt was able to get a link that they sent out to all the reporters covering the show that has, they released the link for the first 8 episodes, and then this past Friday, they released the link to episodes 9 and 10. And Bill Hunt, who I trust implicitly, he said the last 2 episodes are amazing. The show takes some incredible turns. He can't believe where it went, and he's saying it's amazing that he was the one that actually told me that season 4 starts in 2003. So it'll be interesting to see. Can't wait for it. Really looking forward to seeing what happens because Bill was very enthusiastic. I'm glad you and your partner are enjoying the show because, by God, it's one of the best shows on TV. Luke 1234 says, how do you think the Silver Surfer will be introduced into the MCU? Fantastic Four, a name drop of him, or Galactus in Guardians Volume 3, or perhaps his own standalone film? Well, you know what? I mean, I think that the Silver Surfer is so closely identified with Galactus that he's either going to be a part of the Fantastic Four movie or will be mentioned. I mean, Silver Surfer was one of the heralds of Galactus, so I would assume there. I don't think he's going to get his own movie. Nor Rad's going to get his own movie, but you never know. I mean, maybe in phase 5 or 6. I don't know if they'll do that. I think you have to have him as part of the Fantastic Four. And to me, if you're doing Fantastic Four, you got to have Galactus within that milieu, really, I think. Hayden Burke says, a nitpick no one talks about with the Star Wars sequels, there's a third act formula. Finn goes to disable First Order tech on the ground, Poe is in aerial combat, and Rey is having a lightsaber fight. The Last Jedi is a bit earlier. Maybe this bored casual fans. Well, I mean, you know what? I don't know. I think that, look, having 3 different points of view to jump between always makes for incredible drama. And you could say that James Bond movies usually they follow a very formulaic strategy. In the end is some kind of a big conflagration and Bond gets involved in the final showdown between him and the villain. So I don't think people mind that so much. It's just that, you know, I feel that the Disney sequel trilogy did not have us as viewers invested in what was going on. You're not following much of a through line because it was just kind of a given that Rey was going to follow Luke's path because she's kind of like Luke, but it wasn't earned. I don't think the viewers were really invested in it. By the time you get to Rise of Skywalker, it's like, what's happening here? Why are we watching this? I don't know. I still don't know, to be honest, and I've seen it already. So, yeah. I don't know if it's formulaic. I don't know if that's why people weren't as invested. I just think that the characters weren't as well drawn. That's why we didn't dig it as much. Jordan Maui says, hey, X-Men theory. The Celestial from the Eternals corpse is now expelling all of the energy it was taking to grow back into the population and awaken the X gene. Atlantis is also closest to the Earth's core, which is closest to the Celestial. So if Namor is in Black Panther 2, he could already have his powers. That's one theory. Theory 2 is the bracelet is a negaband from the negative zone, Noor, and it makes a physical representation of a mutant's power, meaning Kamala could actually have her stretch powers. I don't know. I love you guys. You know, that's interesting. Here's my problem with your theories. I think they're actually pretty good. I like the idea that the Celestials could have awakened the X gene, but you know, according to X-Men mythology, if you go all the way back to like Apocalypse, not just the movie, but in the comics as well, Apocalypse was in ancient Egypt, and he's one of the oldest mutants. And so there have been mutants throughout history. And I just think that mutants, they're going to say that they've always been here and we haven't seen them. They've kept quiet up until now. Or there's been mutants that we didn't realize were mutants that were that were on the world stage. I don't know, but I think it's definitely a problem that they have not addressed. And obviously it's a problem they couldn't avoid. I mean, even in Age of Ultron, they called Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver miracles and not mutants. And I understand, but they're going to retcon that because Scarlet Witch is a mutant and so is Quicksilver. And you could say that the latency of their powers were brought forth by the power of the Infinity Stones or whatever, but I don't think that's going to be true. I think they're going to say that that's what Hydra mistook for being what was going on there, but we'll see. But your theories are good, but they both say that mutants were just now created, and I think that's problematic. I think they've probably always been here. We just haven't seen them yet. But you never know. But if they want to go with the route that mutants aren't here and that something has awakened their X gene, I think what you've done is quite good. Quite good. I like both of those theories, actually. Ethan Holgate, one of two. Hi, Rob or John. I think the reason why the Munsters trailer doesn't look good or feel right is because it's in color. Someone did a black and white version of the trailer on YouTube, and in my opinion, the movie looks 1,000 times better, and I would honestly watch it in that format. It really fits the goofy style he was going for and makes it look way more watchable, I think. I'd say Rob Zombie intended it to be that way, but maybe the studio said no, it has to be in color. Hopefully it will be an option on the Blu-ray. Well, Ethan, I don't think that we've heard the last of the Munsters. I think there's something more going on. Like I like the theory that was proposed today that maybe it's a movie within a movie or something along those lines. And also, you know, if it was meant to be in black and white, why would they spend so much time doing color makeups? And to me, the tone of it was all wrong. And I would love to see new versions of it. I mean, you know, Bryan Singer and Brian Fuller teamed up and made a movie called 13 Mockingbird Lane that was on TV. It's a one-off, but that was a much more modern updating of the Munsters than what we saw here today. I can't believe the man who made The Devil's Rejects and The House of a Thousand Corpses would give us this kind of a Munsters. I think something's going on. I think there's something janky here, and I don't quite know what it is. Whether they're playing us. I mean, even look at the fonts they used. And the crude way of looking at all this stuff, so we shall see. But yeah, I guess looking at the trailer would make it black and white. It doesn't make it any less dumb. It seems like, why would you want to make a Munsters show that was a throwback to the original and not put your own sort of imprimatur on it? I don't know, man. I don't get it. I don't presume to understand it, but I don't think we've heard the last of this. I think we're going to get more, and all will be revealed, probably sooner rather than later. Maybe, as John said on the show today, maybe at Comic-Con it'll get revealed. Don't know yet, but we shall find out. Ethan Holgate goes on to say, hi, John and Rob. Out of curiosity, what are some of your favorite Gene Wilder movies besides Willy Wonka? Some of mine would have to be See No Evil, Hear No Evil, Silver Streak, Young Frankenstein, Hanky Panky, Stir Crazy, and Haunted Honeymoon. Well, I think you nailed it there. Young Frankenstein and Stir Crazy are two of my favorite Gene Wilder performances. I mean, easily. Those, you know, Silver Streak's great, and if you haven't seen it in a while, go back and check it out because it's a great comedy. Of course, that's Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein is come on, one of the great comedies of all time. But Gene Wilder, what a treasure, and the work he did with Richard Pryor, great stuff. And now let's hear from our sponsor, the great people at BetterHelp.
Hey guys, we want to take a second and thank the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. You know, in the age of social media, you might think that everybody's life except yours is perfect because everybody always posts the best memories, the most glamorous shots. But you and I both know that's not how life is. We get pitched some serious curveballs, and sometimes it seems like a lot of them. And you know, we always encourage each other to get out there and to get into better physical health, going to the gym and eating right. But it's about time we started paying more attention to our mental health as well. And that's where our friends at BetterHelp come in. Because see, BetterHelp is not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log onto your account anytime and send private messages to your therapist, or you can schedule weekly or phone-only sessions if you're one of those people that's not really comfortable being on camera. And getting therapy every week is as easy as just a few clicks on your laptop or phone. It is time to invest in your own mental health, and BetterHelp is a great way to invest in yourself. And right now, they have a special offer for all of the John Campea Show listeners to get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Campea. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/Campea.
And a very special thanks to BetterHelp for bringing us a sponsorship to this episode of the Mailbag. And after looking at that, I think I could probably benefit from BetterHelp. At least that's what Elizabeth's been telling me for the last couple of years. Sam Fisher, one of two, says, I just heard someone suggest that the next Bond movie have both Bond undercover the entire time and an impossible stacked cast. The twist, we don't know who is playing Bond, so the character can be any one of these massive named actors. I don't know if it would work, at least for a Bond movie, but I love the idea of a massively stacked cast for a mystery thriller, and the denouement or reveal is who is an undercover cop secret agent like Perot, only if we didn't know who Perot was. Well, Sam, that's an interesting idea, but I would ask you, who do you put inside the gun barrel at the beginning of the movie? Of course, you could do what they did in Casino Royale and, maybe not use the same kind of gun barrel, although it was really cool how they did do it in the opening. I just think, look, if they make a new series of Bond movies with a new actor, one of the things that the Bond series has done throughout its history is make a big deal of, they always do a big press conference and introduce Bond to the public in the UK. I think they got to do that. I really do. Because, it's Bond, and you're going to want to know who plays him. I just don't think you can make a mystery movie where you don't reveal who Bond is until the end of the film. I mean, how would you even shoot that with somebody not finding out who Bond was? I just don't think you could pull it off. I do think it's an interesting idea, though. I just don't think it would work necessarily with the Bond franchise. But that's just me. Digital Ronin sends in a tip and says, Rob, I love Legends of the Galactic Heroes. Rob, I love Kurt Busiek's Marvels. Rob, I love classic Moon Knight. And after today, Rob, I love Meet the Feebles. Well, Digital Ronin, clearly you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. First of all, a lot of people don't know Meet the Feebles. For those of you who don't know, pre-Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson, when he was in his bad taste, brain dead days, made basically a very, very filthy, borderline X-rated puppet movie called Meet the Feebles. And it is something to behold. And it's difficult to find. I hear they're remastering it. But Digital Ronin, it pleases me to no end that you sought out Meet the Feebles and watched it. Because wouldn't you say that you're a better human being now than when you hadn't seen it? I know you've taken your first step into a larger world, and now you probably also have a very different view of the man who made Lord of the Rings than you had before you had watched Meet the Feebles. So congratulations to you, sir. Digital Ronin, I'm glad I could help broaden your horizons and turn you into a different person. Please go sing the gospel of Meet the Feebles far and wide. But don't take responsibility for what people come away with thinking about you. Just you didn't make the movie. Just remind them of that. Glad you dug it, though. Meet the Feebles. Peter Porker says, Spectacular Spider-Man is one of the best animated superhero series ever. Sony had the blueprint for their standalone Spider-Verse and fumbled the bag. If you haven't seen all 26 episodes, they are streaming on Netflix. Fantastic show. Peter Porker, you are correct. I'm surprised you didn't say Spectacular Spider-Ham. It is a great animated show. They do a great job with Spider-Man and the mythos. I can't agree with you more. I think you're absolutely right. And now you've made me want to go back and watch it again on Netflix. It's a hugely enjoyable animated Spider-Man series. So I am with you 100%. And I love the fact that you are Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham. Miguel Zayan. Zayan says, hola, host of Mailbag Show. That would be me. Hope you are doing well. Regarding the Munsters trailer, I heard that it cost about $40 million. Bruh. They could have made two or three good A24 films or a District 9 sequel with that amount of bucks. Laugh out loud. There better be a good sex scene there with Frankenstein. Laugh out loud. Well, Miguel, I can't speak to that. And honestly, when you say a good sex scene with Frankenstein, how could that be? Those seem to be two very differing terms. A good sex scene with Frankenstein. I don't know, whatever floats your boat. I'm sure it would be electric, if you know what I'm saying. Come on, Ray. Come on. My comedy stylings. As you can tell, I'm not a paid comedian. Miguel Zayan comes back and says, hello, John and Rob. MCU topic over or under 35% that Feige will make the first mutant-related MCU movie a non-X-Men movie. Well, they kind of did that with Miss Marvel. Do you think they would just stick to the tradition and use X-Men Team First? Which characters do you want to see? I want to see Gambit and Rogue. Thanks. I mean, look, I think both Gambit and Rogue are great characters. I've loved Gambit was introduced in X-Men 266, right? 266. And Rogue, of course, was introduced in Avengers Annual 10 that was written by Chris Claremont, famous X-Men writer, and drawn by Michael Golden, which is one of my favorite single issues of a superhero comic ever. But I really think they're going to have to give us the traditional core team. I mean, we're going to get Storm, we're going to get Cyclops, we're going to get Jean Grey, we're going to get Iceman probably. But I mean, why not give us Rogue? It could be great. And of course, Wolverine. I could see them. It would not surprise me if they introduced the X-Men in a standalone Wolverine movie. I mean, if I was going to, you could do an X-Men movie for sure, but introducing Wolverine, because remember, that's how we got into the universe with Bryan Singer's X-Men in 2000. They started with Wolverine, and we sort of moved out from there. And why not do an entire standalone Wolverine movie? Because you could add in the backstory of mutants into the whole world. And without it would make sense. I mean, Wolverine's journey, and do it right. Although I don't know how they would do it. I really don't know. I'm very curious because, as I've told a lot of people, for me, the X-Men, the way I think about Star Trek as a television show, the X-Men are kind of the Star Trek of the comic book world for me. I'm a really huge fan of X-Men, so I'm very curious to see how they're going to do it. I don't know how they are going to do it. They might even lean in to Hickman's recent run with House of X and Powers of X, or Powers of 10, and lean into that new, more modern, updated sci-fi take with Krakoa and the ability of resurrection and all that, with the Hellfire Club gala and all that craziness that's going on. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do. But I would prefer they begin with the traditional core team. But they might lean into X-Men, the giant-sized X-Men 1, that team, which added a few new wrinkles, a few new characters. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't have a sense of it. I really don't know. So I'm with you. The Event Horizon 4K Steelbook is in August. Now we need a Hellraiser 4K release. You'll get no argument from me. Oh, hang on a second. This is a silly goose. I missed that. Let me start again. A silly goose. My deepest desire is for Rob to say to me, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay, but it has to be earned. On a separate note, Rob, will you be picking up the Event Horizon 4K Steelbook in August? Now, we need a Hellraiser 4K release. Well, a silly goose, you say we need a 4K Hellraiser release. You know what I say to you? Silly goose, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. And if you're asking me whether I'm going to pick up the Event Horizon 4K Steelbook, let me think. Come on, bro. Of course course, I love Event Horizon, even though I'm kind of getting tired of getting these new like Scream Factory releases, and then they release the 4K like within the same year. It's like, just give me the 4K. If you remaster it in 4K, what are we waiting for? But Silly Goose, I hope I've made your dreams come true today, because that's what we do here at the John Campea Show. We make dreams come true. Thank you for writing in. Dr. J says, I'm wondering if Valentina Allegra de Fontaine may have recruited director Tyler Hayward from WandaVision and DODC agent Deaver, Miss Marvel, that'll be Damage Control, in addition to other villains and anti-heroes. Are all these characters just one-and-done baddies? That's a really, no, I don't think Julia Louis-Dreyfus is a one-and-done baddie. I think we're going to see more of these organizations, just like I think we're going to see more Sword as well. I think because you have to do that. We need these organizations, and I think these organizations, obviously, there's so many different organizations in the Marvel universe, the comic universe anyway. And the more the merrier, that I say. We got to see how the jurisdiction works. Like, how does S.H.I.E.L.D. work with all this? I know Sword's going after extraterrestrial threats or things like that, but it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together. I don't think anything is necessarily one and done in the MCU. I think everything is ripe for coming back. I think that they can always make sure that they can use these organizations however they have to. And if they employ them, use them correctly, it's always going to be a good thing for them. So hey, I'm excited. I love these organizations. I mean, when I was a kid reading Marvel comics, when they would bring out these whatever it was, I'm like, yeah, cool. Organizations are great. I love Marvel comics or Marvel Universe, whether it's cops, whether it's take your pick. I think it's really cool that they should do a Damage Control series. I'd love to see that. Why not? Royale says, I had an idea about when to start moving films from screen to streaming. As long as it stays in the top 10 or at least making consistently 6 figures a week in theaters, leave it alone. Once it is out of the top 10 or making less than 6 figures, stream it. Royale, I don't disagree with you there, but the problem is they have to plan out this far, far, far in advance. I mean, nowadays when they're getting ready, when they're prepping movies for streaming, they start that even before the movies are coming out in theaters, because they have to program all the metadata. They have to now they're dubbing movies into 12 different languages and the subtitling. So there's a lot of work. They have to schedule this stuff in advance. So they can't just waiting till it finishes its theatrical run is these decisions are made way before that. But I definitely agree with you. Look, I think all movies should be left in the theater longer than they are now. This 45-day window, I say change it to 60 and go with God. I think 45 days is too little. Unless, the movie is going to burn out. If it's front-loaded like a Marvel Cinematic Universe film, I understand. It blazes a trail through the box office, and then it winds up on streaming very quickly. But other movies, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, that kept adding. Every week, word of mouth, it kept adding and adding and adding more eyes were on it. It was making more money. It became A24's globally their most successful movie. And that was because they left it in the theaters for a while. So yeah, good stuff, but interesting idea you have. It's just that's not how the business works. But I like your idea. I like where you're taking that. I just don't think that the way Hollywood currently works now, they can actually do that. They have to know what they're doing before they go into the release. Royale goes on to say, which show had the best season so far this year? Peacemaker Season 1, The Boys Season 3, or Stranger Things Season 4? Unless you have another show to put up. For me, it is The Peacemaker, The Boys, and Stranger Things in that order, I would imagine. You know what? That's a tough one because, I want to answer your question. I don't want to cop out, but I want to say that all 3 of those shows, Peacemaker, The Boys, and Stranger Things, all had great seasons this year. And I always go back to the fact that did the filmmakers achieve the goal that they were trying to achieve when they set out to make these shows? And I think the answer to all of those things was yes, absolutely yes. again, Peacemaker and the boys kind of share a certain sensibility, but James Gunn, I think, had the disadvantage of they were coming out with a Peacemaker series after his version of Suicide Squad, which introduced John Cena's Peacemaker, had not done well. So he had to follow it up with that Peacemaker series, which in a way, like you put it first, I think that there's a great argument to be made. You're correct, because that show worked as well as it did is a testament to how good that show really was. Because if it hadn't been good, James Gunn would have been seen as a huge failure. That said, I think that Stranger Things, coming off kind of in a way, the second and third seasons were not nearly as strong as the first. So to be as strong as it was, I mean, the Duffer Brothers kind of came back. I believe they wrote and directed every episode. I thought they knocked that out of the park too. They had the time to do it. They had much bigger budgets, so there's a lot more stuff going on and visual effects and location work and all that, which I understand. But it was also strong. And then the boys, again, pulling all those disparate threads and storylines together. Such great TV. So you're asking me to rank them. I would probably say Peacemaker. I'll go with you on Peacemaker. I would say The Boys and Stranger Things. But in my mind, they're all kind of equal. But I would go with your order. If I was hard pressed, I would say yes, your order is acceptable. Absolutely. Wildebeest sends in a tip and says, "Hi, John and Rob. Over or under 30% that Levi interrupts Black Adam's San Diego Comic-Con panel and The Rock doesn't blink. Then Shazam says he's not alone. In comes the Shazam family. Black Adam is still not scared. Then the Shazam family says, that's not all. In comes Henry Cavill as Superman. Loud pop." Dude, you know what? Like John said, if that happens at San Diego Comic-Con this year, DC wins Comic-Con, Warner Brothers wins Comic-Con, and we as audience members, I mean, that's going to be one of the great Comic-Con moments of all time. Here's the thing. I think it's plausible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I don't think it's out of the realm of plausibility. I mean, I think it's strange that we have a Shazam, Fury of the Gods and Black Adam, because those movies to me are almost kind of interchangeable. It's weird that we're getting a Black Adam and a Shazam movie like at the same time, and they don't have some kind of a connection. So it would not surprise me if I wouldn't call it, what is the opposite of a nightmare scenario? That's what you're describing, something like that. Amazing. I could see it happening. I want it to happen. Now you've stuck it in my mind. I'm going to believe it happens until it doesn't later this week, but you're going to make me feel very sad if it doesn't, and I'm going to blame you, and I'm going to have to go get help. Sam Fisher says, "My dad likes to watch old Perry Masons with Raymond Burr late at night. After watching several with him, I had a question. Did network TV have a crime doesn't pay censorship rule like the Comics Code Authority? Because Perry Mason always inexplicably wins his case." Sam, you're not wrong. Network standards and practices did have rules like that in place. They could not be ambiguous about it. Evil, bad people, bad dudes, bad women, whatever, they had to get punished. And that was absolutely a rule with American television for a certain time. There was a lot of things they couldn't show. That's why people like creators like Rod Serling would use The Twilight Zone to examine issues they couldn't deal with directly on American television. And that's why The Twilight Zone was such a significant show for the 5 years that it ran, because it was in the Twilight Zone, so they could get away with saying, well, I know we can't address issues of racism and war and things like that, but we can in the Twilight Zone. So that's what they used to get away with things. With Raymond Burr and with those shows, that's how they had to do it. But, I mean, he was a hero. They weren't going to let him lose a case. Now, of course, lots of people can lose cases. It becomes a season-long arc. But nowadays, things are much, much different than they were back in the day. Neil says, "A shout out to Showcase Cinemas here in the UK for offering free tickets for redheads. Come on. Is that true? Monday and Tuesday during the hot weather. A good time to go to the cinema to watch a good movie surrounded by a bevy of redheaded beauties. Well, Neil, you just described my dream scenario. I don't know if this is true. If it's true, I'm coming out to the UK to join one of these afternoons at the movies. I mean, the problem is if you're surrounded by a bevy of redheaded beauties, I hope you're not talking to them while the movies are going on, because that would be supremely annoying. So don't do that. I mean, but hopefully you'll have some good pitter patter, so when the movie's over, you might be able to chat one of those lovely redheads up. Of course, you're just saying redheads. I'm sure it's dudes and dudettes. So, hey, it's just a potpourri of redheads. That, to me, is a great afternoon. I didn't know they did that. But is that not discriminatory? Isn't there somebody saying that, wait a minute, I'm a brunette, or, I'm a blonde. Why am I being discriminated against by this theater? I could see that happening in the United States. Thank God you live in the UK, because God bless you all. This is oh, wow. Okay. Gregor's? I don't even know. Okay. Gregor's Brzezinskis. I don't mean to butcher your name. I can't even begin to try and pronounce this. BRZECZYSZ. There's like 5 Z's in your name. I can't do it. Can I just call you Gregory B? Okay, Gregory B. Hi, John and Rob. Do you feel embarrassed if you find it difficult to pronounce a viewer's name? Thanks. I see what you did there. I guess it may be a downside of having international communities. Can you name 3 of the biggest upsides of having such a community? P.S. You can call me Gregory. All right, Gregory B. I don't feel embarrassed because, I mean, if it's something, I'll give you an example. So when I worked in Bulgaria, and in Bulgaria, they use Cyrillic. It's an entirely different alphabet, like Hebrew, like other languages. Cyrillic it's not English. So I can't read. I have nothing I can say, and I was never embarrassed. I would have to ask people, hopefully, like if you had a menu, sometimes they could translate it or something. But I don't think you should ever feel embarrassed by if you don't know how to pronounce a name. One of the great things about going to other cultures is to get some insight into those cultures and ask. That's when you go and visit other places. I like to learn. Like I go to Korea, or I go to Japan, it's totally different language. I mean, I can't even. It's very strange when you look at Korean or you look at Japanese. I have no sense at all of what those letters mean. I don't know what they sound like. I don't know what they, and I love them, but I completely out of the realm of my experience. So I think it's a good thing when you go to countries and you have to learn how to pronounce people's names like that. There's a comic writer in the United States, Bill Sienkiewicz. Now, I was like, is it Bill Sienkiewicz? He drew Moon Knight back in the day, and it took me a long time before I figured out that his name is pronounced Sienkiewicz. And he even now, if you go look at his social media profile, sometimes he has it phonetically spelled out. And I was never embarrassed by that, but I was very happy to understand how to actually pronounce his name correctly. So I think it's always an opportunity to broaden your horizons when you learn about other people's cultures. I don't know if that means I'll ever be able to pronounce your last name, Gregory. I'm just going to call you Gregory B. That's it. I hope you don't mind. You said I could call you Gregory. So I appreciate that, because, man, that was a tongue twister. Costanza says, have you had the chance to check out The Terminal List? I thought it had a couple of missteps, but overall I enjoyed it as an action, suspense, political thriller. Also some pretty brutal sequences. Costanza, I did watch the first episode this weekend before I watched Blackbird, and I thought it was pretty good. Like, I'm a huge Tom Clancy fan. I read all of Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan books and his non-Jack Ryan books like Red Storm Rising or the John Clark books. I didn't like it when other authors took over, but I didn't read those. But I love that kind of thing. It's right up my alley. I hope it stays good, because I liked the first episode. It was good. I like Chris Pratt in it too. Very intriguing. Hope it sticks the landing. Mongo Like Candy sends in a tip and says, do you remember the Young Indiana Jones series? Perfect Disney Plus series instead of replacing forward and future movies. Well, it's funny. We talked about that on the John Campea Show today. Now, people forget multiple actors have already played Indiana Jones at various stages in his life. Sean Patrick Flannery played Indiana Jones. River Phoenix played Indiana Jones. I forget the little kid who played Indiana Jones and the old man who played Indiana Jones. And then, of course, I mean, that's four actors right there that have played in various stages of Indiana Jones's life. So I think you could actually get away with a Chris Pratt playing Indiana Jones. I mean, you can always recast an actor, but I just think, wouldn't it be kind of neat though if certain characters just stayed those characters forever? Like Harrison Ford was the only person who ever played adult Indy like that. I kind of would like that. I mean, I know that is not conducive to a company's bottom line, but I think it would be kind of neat if it was like that. But there's other actors that have played Indiana Jones, and some of the Indiana Jones Chronicles are quite good. There's some World War I episodes that are really great. There's a jazz episode that I really liked. So there are, and I don't know if they show the ones with when Indiana Jones was really little. I know George Lucas was not fond of those, and they pulled those from syndication. But I thought Sean Patrick Flannery was pretty good as a young Indiana Jones. And when the scripts were good, they were really good, I thought. Calvin Bose. One problem with franchises today is we are so oversaturated with content that films are no longer events. The only film series that is an event today are the 007 films because there's a wait between the films. I miss films being a big event. Well, Calvin Bose, good to see you in these parts. But I would say, look, I think the Marvel movies, even though 3 or 4 might come out a year, are event movies. I think Top Gun Maverick became an event movie. I mean, we anticipate Bond movies. You're not wrong because we get one every 2 years. Star Wars movies are event movies, I think, still. I think event movies are the combination of anticipation by the audience and what they deliver in the long run. I would say that Mission Impossible, after Top Gun Maverick and after Fallout, I would say Mission Impossible 7 and 8 are going to be event films. They're going to be highly anticipated. People want to go see them. So it really depends. I mean, I think audiences' tastes change. But I do think that movies now, the kind of money they're making, a big event movie can make $1 billion. 20 years ago, this wasn't the case. I don't believe the $1 billion mark had been cracked until Titanic. Don't quote me on that. There might have been ones that came out before that made $1 billion, but that's a huge number. And when people are seeing a movie that many times, it becomes an event picture. But now, are Bond movies the only event movies? Well, there's an argument to be made that they come out every 2 years. But I would say that the audience anticipation for a Bond movie might not be as big as, say, for Marvel movies or Star Wars movies. So I think there's an argument either way, I think. Isaiah Arana says, I think the big issue with the rather mediocre quality of most Marvel shows has been the fact that they were all mostly filmed in the same pandemic period, leaving them not that much of a chance to learn from the failings of their current format and style. Isaiah, that's actually that's a pretty astute observation. I think you're not necessarily wrong about that. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, Captain America and the Winter Soldier had to be rejiggered because it was about a potential global pandemic that was going to be triggered by some of the villains. They had to revamp that whole thing. And so I think that, yeah, you might be right about that. I just don't know in their conception if they had ways to learn more about what worked and what didn't, if they could change them that much. I'm not sure if they would do that necessarily, but it's an interesting observation that I don't think you're totally wrong either. I think that you make a lot of salient points. So, yeah. Isaiah Arana comes back and says, for as much as I love Ragnarok, Loki, and like Love and Thunder, it feels almost unavoidable that some of the most serious characterizations from Thor and Loki will unfortunately be a bit cheapened by the sillier direction of their ongoing arcs. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I said, as much as I did enjoy Loki, I thought they pushed it too far. The time variance authority, as it was shown in Loki, and what they did with all the different Thors and all that, I think it really strained credulity. It pushed the edges of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It pushed too far, I thought. It became too... Look, it's possible to become too fantastical. I know that seems silly when you're dealing with Thanos and you're dealing with the Guardians of the Galaxy and you're dealing with Celestials and all that, but there is some of that stuff all works. I mean, it's like Lord of the Rings. You know, you can have a Balrog, and it never... Lord of the Rings... Sauron and the orcs and Saruman creating this army and the talking trees, the Ents. All of that is crazy, but it kind of works within the milieu that Tolkien wrote about. Does the time variance authority work in the context of the greater MCU? Well, now it does, but I still don't buy it. Because the idea of the time variance authority, does it fit in with the same universe that the Celestials exist in? Because it's a parody of, it's very much like Orwellian, and you're talking about, whether it's 1984 or Brave New World, but then coupled with the fact like Animal Farm, and it's a little too, to me, it was a little too crazy. I don't know if I would have introduced the time variance authority. That is a much more Terry Gilliam-like thing, and I think it pushed the Marvel Universe too far. Just like I think Thor: Love and Thunder, in certain aspects, pushed the Marvel Universe a little too far. Interesting that they're both dealing with the gods of Asgard. I don't know what that means, but hey, it's an interesting question. Well, we come to the end. I want to thank all of you for sending in tips for today's episode, the 18th of July, 2022. This episode of the John Campea Show Mailbag. You give us great stuff to talk about, and you support the channel in the process. Of course, if you would like to send a question to us, right down there is the link. You can do that. And of course, every day on the John Campea Show, we do open up the super chats for a small period of time, and we will read your questions live on the air. My name is, of course, Robert Meyer Burnett, and you can find me on Instagram at rmburnett. You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me at postgeeksingularity.com. Thanks very much. And once again, thank you for all your generous support. You folks, you're one of the best communities on YouTube.